Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day. And above all else, that you're looking after yourselves and one another. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have some fun with this episode. This is part of a two-pack that we're going to bring to you today. But before I get into what the topic is, I want to welcome back to the channel, Mr. Jim Bricker. How's it going, Jim?
Doing fine, Armando. Happy to be back with all y'all.
Yes, it's been a long time since I last saw you, about 24 hours, right? Pretty much.
Less.
Pretty much. And also, as I see on my screen down below, Mr. Bill Schuster. How's it going, Bill?
Great, Armando. Now, on my screen, you're down below. So who knows what the audience is going to see?
I know. I
That's
know.
true.
There you go. There you go. Well, yeah. You never know how these how you're gonna line up on the video here. So ladies and gentlemen, we have an album ranking for you. We are going to be tackling the albums of Steven Wilson. Steven Wilson, everyone knows, main songwriter and lead singer of Porcupine Tree, has gone on to have I guess you'd say, a prolific solo career. He is also the go-to guy if you want your back catalog remixed and remastered and repackaged and refurbished in any way you want. He's done remixes for any number of bands, Just Hotel, uh, you know, just to name one. But we have decided to sit down.
Crimson, yes. XTC, Gentle
There you
Giant.
go.
I mean,
Yeah, there you
on
go.
and on.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. I sit corrected. Thank you for adding more there, Jim. But we have decided today to tackle all 8 albums of Steven Wilson's catalog. And I wanted to mention too that there is word that he is releasing a new album in 2025 called The Overview. So we're all looking forward to that. Um, so yeah, this for me is before we started filming. I did say that this ranking for me was a lot. It was a challenge in terms of the albums and the content on the albums, and but we did it, and we're going to bring this to you. So, as I look on my screen, I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to. We're going to start with Jim. So,
Okay,
all right.
let's start with me, and we'll see if since I'm first up, if I can correctly pronounce the title of this album. So, from my number 8,
Okay.
the bottom of the stack is the first solo album from Mr. Wilson, and I believe it's pronounced Insurgentes. It might be Insurgentes. I don't know. Not exactly sure how deep he wanted to go with its Espanol on that album.
Yeah, yeah.
However, pronunciation aside, I mean, this I think was always going to be the one that was on the bottom. To me, the songs are just kind of there. Um, I first became familiar with these tunes through the DVD Get All You Deserve, which was a concert that was filmed down in Mexico on the Grace for Drowning tour. Looking like that, exactly. Great show, highly recommended. The intro, No Twilight Within the Courts of the Sun, is absolutely outstanding. Um, However, outside of the context of that live concert, the songs just kind of lie there. They don't grab me. I don't really connect with them. I mean, there's nothing bad about them. It's quality work, Stephen, but I just don't really, connect with it. When I, kind of rewatch the DVD, definitely the songs that grab me the least are the ones from Insurgentes. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's just that there's ones in Steven's catalog that tower way above it, in my opinion. So that's my start.
Okay. Here's a question for you. Do you, after listening to Insurgentes, do you maybe think that he was trying to put too much on the album at one time, like trying to cover maybe too much musical ground?
I'm not sure. I know Steven is a fan of editing himself down and trying to present a package that, a consumer can kind of listen to in one shot. So he's not one to just kind of throw crap out there.
Hmm.
I don't know, Armando. It doesn't strike me as that, but I hadn't really thought about it deeply.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. All right, Bill.
All right. All right. My first choice, my last place was pretty easy for me because though you guys would disagree with me, obviously, and Prague Archives disagrees with me, I think Stephen himself and the Wikipedia stuff that I found do agree with me that Four and a Half is not actually a regular studio album. It's a odds and sods EP collection. It's not bad. I like it well enough, but it's hard for me to take this seriously as an album because it wasn't really created as an album. It was bits and pieces, largely from The Raven and Hand Cannot Erase. Um, but really, if you look at the final song, you have a semi live version of Don't Hate Me, which when I think Don't Hate Me, I'm thinking of this. Porcupine Tree's Stupid Dream had the original Don't Hate Me on it. So why do I want Stephen Wilson covering himself, even if it does have a great vocal from Nanette Ted?
Yeah.
Um, I still kind of prefer the original. And if you take away Don't Hate Me, you're essentially left with 27 minutes worth of music here. So
Hmm.
it's nice, but kind of inconsequential overall. The songs on this, outside of Don't Hate Me, remind me of their parent albums, but lesser versions,
Hmm.
incomplete. So
Mm.
yeah, it's definitely a 4.5 is my bottom. I thought I had the Blu-ray around here somewhere, but apparently I never bought it, much to my surprise.
Okay. All right. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, my number eight, and before I give you my number eight, we did not talk about our lists amongst each other. So my number eight is Insurgentes. And it to me, and it's okay. It's a good album. I just like I was asking Jim, I just think maybe he was just trying to put too much on the first solo effort. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot here. With songs like, Harmony Korine and, Abandoner, Salvaging, and I like the fact that um he tries to, from what I hear on, for the track No Twilight Within the Courts of the Sun, he kind of tries to go into more of a jazz fusion kind of a field, from what I'm hearing. But I just I'm with Jim. There's not really any songs that really grab me per se, by the throat, grab me by the throat and say, listen to this, you need to hear this. So that's why it's my number eight, Insurgentes. Moving
So,
on.
question, Armando, have you ever heard or seen the Get All You Deserve live set?
No, you see,
Okay.
let me, put this out there. When these albums were coming out at the time, I really was not aware of, you know, Stephen Wilson or Porcupine Tree as a group at all. They were not on my radar. I'm a newbie, right? Um, to Stephen
Hmm.
Wilson, to his back catalog, from the earlier solo albums. So this is all, you know, brand new, for me. But you know, I'm liking what I'm hearing, but right now this is where the album sits for me on the list. It could go up, it could, it could stay where it is.
Yeah.
And with the new album coming out, it could go further down on the list. You never know. So I mean, but for now, um, it's my number eight. So
Mhm.
okay.
And we should tell the good folks at home that we are only considering the studio albums and the EP.
Yes,
So that we're not going to talk about Royal Albert Hall. We're not going to talk about, Get All You Deserve
that's right. That's right. And
in depth.
I'm gonna qualify. 4.5. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, it's 36 minutes and 54 seconds long. back in my day, back in the 80s, that was an album. Okay. It was not an EP. That would be considered an album. So to me, it is an album. I mean, yes, it's listed as an EP, but that is why it is on the list. So, um, I just thought it'd be good to throw that out there. So, moving on to Jim.
Number seven. Okay.
Yes.
Number seven is the one from 2021, The Future Bites. Um, you know, I like this quite a bit if I'm in the mood for it. I mean, it's so vertical in the style that it goes for. I mean, this is, Steven in his high techno pop, ABBA, Depeche mode. And there's good stuff on there, but like I said, I gotta be in the mood for it. If I recall correctly, the only track on this album that has anything resembling organicness on it is 12 Things I Forgot. The rest of it is just highly produced electronic um, dance pop, maybe. Um, and like I said, it's good, but boy, if I'm not in the mood to hear that kind of stuff, I'm just not even going to go there. I would rather listen to Future Bites more than Insurgentes, though, because there's more of a quality to it and sort of a better execution of the theme than Insurgentes to me.
I hear what you're saying. Okay.
The
Interesting.
other thing I'll mention is that, Steven was planning on an incredibly ambitious audio visual tour for the Future Bites that got just completely cut off at the knees because of COVID. So that's a darn shame.
Yeah. Yeah. COVID affected a lot of artists in that way, in terms of
Yeah.
touring. So, all right. Down to Bill.
All right. I forgot on my first go around. Jim was wondering about my shirt. Well, I don't actually have a Steven Wilson shirt or any other act that he's a part of, but I do have another brilliant artist with a similar name. And yes, it's Stevlin Morris, Stevie Wonder. So
No.
that's why I'm wearing my Stevie Wonder shirt today. I have no Steven Wilson. So Stevie is standing in for Steven.
All right. There is a harmonica connection, though,
Yes, there is.
later on.
Um, and
Okay.
Armando talked about being new to this catalog. I guess I should probably throw a quick background of where I came in just for reference context. I came in the Chris Maitland era of Porcupine Tree, like Stupid Dream, Light Bulb Sun. We're talking like 2000. That's when I discovered Porcupine Tree. It was when I first really got online and started digging into new music. And so I bought his albums as they came out, um, including Insurgentes, which I've always said as Insurgents, but you're probably actually right on the pronunciation with that. That makes more sense, especially considering it's named after an avenue in Mexico City. But
Okay.
that's neither here nor there. This is supposed to be about my number 7 pick. Speaking of tangents, there I went on a few.
There
So
you
Yes,
go.
again.
There you go.
I'm going to echo Jim's pick. It's the Future Bites. Um, I also like it. I think it's a decent album. And the more I listen to it, the more I actually enjoy it overall. But I also have to be in the mood for it. But in a way, that's kind of true of any Steven Wilson album for me because the guy can be kind of intense, as we kind of discussed prior to recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
My God.
this and yeah, I wanted to echo also the bit about COVID derailing things for this. It also derailed the album release, which extended the singles that he was releasing over a period of like 10 months.
Yeah.
And to me, releasing like 5 singles in that time before the album was even out kind of ruined the experience of discovering it as an album.
Thank
That's why I
you.
normally ignore singles, but I didn't do it in this case, and that was to my detriment. I think
Yeah.
it would have been better to hear it as a whole piece originally rather than, oh yeah, I've heard this song and this song. Um, so yeah, I think that really hurt it quite a bit. But yeah, it's nice for what it is, but it's number 7.
Fair enough. And what have I said about releasing too many singles from an album
Well, in this case, I agree with you.
during a
Absolutely.
Yes,
promotion cycle? During a promotion
yes.
cycle? I'm sorry, but anyways,
After an album release, I would disagree with you, but pre-release, yeah, that's too many.
Yeah, give me one, maybe two before an album releases. But like you were
well,
saying, COVID times, everything went,
yeah, but it
mess
used
over
to
tea kettle. So,
it used to be back in the day that like in the 70s, I remember as a kid getting a new single. Reading up on it would be like a month before the release of an album, and it would be one single. It wouldn't be like the entire album released in bits and pieces. We
yeah.
won't go there, Peter Gabriel. But and it, anyways, my views on that. We won't belabor the point. Um, my number seven, ladies and gentlemen, is four and a half. Um, Released January 22nd, 2016, clocking in at a whopping 36 minutes and 54 seconds. This is not an EP, it's an LP. I'm sorry, it is what it is. Moving on. Um, I I like I like this album. Songs like, My Book of Regrets, what I like about what he does with his tracks is he does a lot of multi-sections, and with his, almost like a beginning, a middle, and an ending. You have songs like, My Book of Regrets, Year of the Plague, which is instrumental, which is somber, with nice synths and stuff. Uh, and I just like this album. I do like the instrumentals more than the tracks with vocals. I got to say it. Like I've said before, listening to his solo albums, his earlier stuff, his vocals seem to come in behind the music, like very sort of not as prominent as the music is,
Hmm.
which this is what I find. But I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm sure people are going to correct me out in the comments and go right ahead. You've done it before, you're going to do it again. So it's just my opinion. Um, I'd just like to have his vocals more prominent in the mix, you know. Um, Other songs, Happiness 3, you know, Sunday Rain sets in. Um, it's good. It's good. It is an album. It's not an EP. We're not going to go there anymore. But that is my number seven. So
So I have a question for you, Mr. Venditti, because
go on.
you're known to kind of have this stance. So for this EP, there's four of the tracks that are on here that were from the Hand Cannot Erase sessions.
Yes.
As a completist, and I know you are,
Yes.
would you rather have these four things kind of mixed into the overall storyline for Hand Cannot Erase? Do you feel cheated because it's incomplete?
If it would give more of a complete story, yes, I would.
Okay.
If these
All right.
ideas, if these ideas, musical ideas, sorry, were just sort of like ideas that he started at the beginning of the process for writing for the album, then, and you wanted to leave them off, fine. But if these ideas were integral to the story of Hank and
Hmm.
Iris, bring them on. Put them in.
Yep.
I'd rather hear everything. But, as you said, I'm a completist, right? So I mean, I
Yes, you
just
are. Okay.
so yeah, yeah, I would have preferred them in. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. My number six is four and a half. So not much else to add here other than My Book of Regrets was performed live when they toured Hand Cannot Erase. So I should have done more research. I don't remember exactly where it fits into the storyline. I think it's in the first third of the whole suite of songs when they performed it live. Um, Year of the Plague, Happiness 3, no, sorry, Happiness 3, Sunday Rain, Vermilion Chord, those to me sound like instrumental sketches that, didn't get far enough for Steven to think, all right, I need to put this into the main album. Um, I like the version of Don't Hate Me that's on here. I would say I would prefer it to the Porcupine Tree version, but that's just because um, this is the version that I became more familiar with. I don't have a great deep connection with the Porcupine Tree back catalog. Nanette's vocals on here, Nanette's vocals on everything are
They're
just
sublime.
absolutely stunning.
They're sublime.
Yeah,
It's
she's
got to
just an
be
incredible
said. She's an
singer.
unsung hero on the
Yeah,
vocal stuff that she performs on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's got to be said.
no, yeah, it does have to be said. Gosh darn it. So yeah, in fact, if I recall correctly, there was one night on the Hand Cannot Erase tour where Steven got a cold or something and he just couldn't sing. Now, Nanette, who was on the tour, he basically handed the mic over to her and she did the all the vocals that night. So it was the same show as they would usually do, but Nanette is out there singing everything.
Hmm.
And apparently, if I recall correctly, the crowd just ate it up because she's just so good. She's so
She's
talented.
she's a powerhouse in
Yeah.
terms of her
Love a
vocal
recording of
delivery.
that.
Like, oh my God. Yeah.
Sorry, Bill?
Said I would love a recording of that.
Yes,
Yeah, I would too.
absolutely. I need to become more familiar with Nanette's solo work because, yeah, just as a vocalist, she's incredibly, sublime and powerful and just very nuanced in how she approaches things.
It's her
So
vocal phrasing.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So hey, all kinds of tangents there. That's my number six, 4.5. We're all done with 4.5.
Okay. Bill.
All right, here is where I admit my failure as a fan because
Uh-oh.
until we did this, I forgot this album even existed or came out. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
Harmony Codex.
Okay.
Life has been so crazy and just so much happening that it kind of came and went in my mind, and other more important things took me away from it. And I was like, really? That came out? Wow. Where have I been? So it's been out over
Mhm.
a year now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I hadn't listened to it until we started planning for this. So I've only heard it a handful of times. So I've got to say, this one has room to grow. It has room to rise up the charts. My
Yep.
unfamiliarity is the main reason it's this low because there's a lot to like about this album.
Hmm.
Um, my first comment on my notes here is full circle back to Insurgentes with a question mark. I'm getting that vibe.
Hmm.
I feel
Yeah,
like
I can
I'm
see
back
where
to the
you
beginning.
would think that. Yeah.
Just a few notes on some of the songs. Inclination. I said I really like the effect of the heavy drums over the incongruous, stark, pretty soundscape. I think that's a very strong effect. What Life Brings reminds me of Chris Maitland era Porcupine Tree, and as I said, that's when I came in, so that's not a bad thing for me. And it's quite a change from the previous song there. Impossible Tightrope, more heavy drums over pretty soundscapes again, but this time with choral vocals. Um, we're really back to the Insurgentes territory here with sounds and vibes rather than songs. So I totally agree with what you said, Jim, about that album. But to me, it's a positive thing. It's in the album's favor that it's just the vibe of that album. It's not about the songs. It's about an overall feeling and mood and sounds. It's just
Hmm.
the adventure. Um, let's see. Da, 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 da. Yeah, even though it's long, it's varied enough to keep my interest for the full 11 minutes. Rock Bottom not only features a lead vocal by Nanette yet again, but she also wrote the song, which rather surprised me. Um, the Harmony Codex, the title track, simple, repetitive, gorgeous soundscape, featuring Steven's wife on spoken word vocals. Yeah, this, wow, it's mostly instrumental, but it's just easy to get lost in. I could handle a whole album of this. It is just absolutely beautiful.
Hmm.
Just, especially, when I listen to this, I'm in here in this music room. I have the lights turned out, and I'm just laid back and just vibing with it, and
Hmm.
I don't care how long it goes on. I want that beautiful sound to keep going on. It's almost like a
Yeah.
Ravel's Bolero effect, only I
Hmm.
like this better. So, and I like Ravel. That's not meant to be a stab at him, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. Actual brutal facts. All right, I really like the distorted speak singing vocals here. Now, I've seen a lot of other reviewers have actually called this a rap, and I think that's not quite accurate. I think this is the same people who consider "Roll the Bones" by Rush a rap song.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah, because
people who
the
have no idea
midsection.
or actual experience with rap
Because of the
music.
midsection. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is not a rap song, folks. I'm sorry, but I'm not an expert, but I have a good familiarity with a lot of rap music, and this ain't it. Um, but I do dig the effect of that spoken word vocal. It's very different for him what he does with his voice there. Um, one thing I really like about this album is the sequencing. I think it's laid out well. You have
Yeah.
four longer songs. They're at 1, 4, 7, and 10. And in between the longer songs, you have two shorter songs in each space. So I think that helps it flow really well. Um, so yeah, it's very well designed. One of his best sequenced albums.
Mm.
So yeah, I can't afford to buy anything right now for various reasons, but you can bet that I added the Blu-ray of this to my Amazon cart. But unfortunately, it seems like the Blu-ray is not regionally compatible with my player. So I might have to rethink and settle
Interesting.
for a different version. Yeah, it's unusual for him because normally his Blu-rays in the past have been region free.
Yeah.
So I'll have
You
to
know,
look
it's
into it further. But
one
Is
of
it?
the things about Steven Wilson is that when he announces a new album, it's usually announced months in advance. Um, we got this his new album that's coming out, I guess, in February. It's already been announced. It was announced a couple of months ago, so like in August or something of 2024.
Yeah.
And usually what happens is that announcement is pretty quickly followed by the advance purchases of, the albums. And Steven is also um, he likes his deluxe editions.
oh yeah,
Oh
And,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like if you want to get the deluxe edition that'll have like the instrumentals or demos or alternate takes, alternate mixes,
Or
like you got to
remixes,
jump
yeah.
on that stuff fast
Yeah.
because they do one batch and it's gone. So, don't be on the fence anymore if you're a Steven Wilson fan.
Yeah, no, I recently saw the Harmony Codex, the triple disc version available on Discogs for a bargain basement price of $350. No, it's not gonna happen. Okay.
No.
I don't need to hear the Roland Orzabal remix of whatever track it is that badly. Do you know what I mean? I really don't need to hear it that badly. I'm sorry. I love you, Stephen, but no, I'm not
no,
doing it. I know you have nothing to do with price, but I gotta blame somebody. But no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So,
I'd be happy with just a simple Blu-ray surround version of the album itself. I don't
region
need
zero,
Yes.
region free. There you go. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and even
obviously.
those that are available domestically, those versions available domestically, you kind of snap them up quickly because they go fast
Yeah.
uh, on Amazon and places like that. So yeah, no, it's no, interesting choice. Interesting choice. So my number six is To the Bone. Um, to me, this is well, first, released August 18th, 2017. You got to put the specifics in there. Um, it's to me, this is his, I guess you'd say, pop rock album. More straightforward, more linear tracks, just straightforward verse, chorus, verse, bridge, type of format. Um, the songs that stand out for me on this album are Pariah, very lush, very epic in its arrangement. You know, it, it's good, but I just need a little bit, just a bit of a left turn. Not too much of a left turn, but just a bit of a tweak here and there, just to give it what I'm used to hearing from Steven Wilson. That's the Steven Wilson treatment in terms of his tracks. Okay, I like the big epic arrangements on his songs. His use of strings on his tracks, all of his tracks is fantastic. So I just need just a little bit more of that on this album. But songs of note, title track. Um, Pariah, as I said, the same asylum as before. It's a bit of a theme going on here. Um, Blank Tapes, another good track. Uh, People Who Eat Darkness. I mean, like again, there's a theme going on here. Okay, with his tracks and lyrical content. I do like the album. I need to listen to it more. This and Hand Cannot Erase. I did pick up one day from Amazon. But I need to dive into them more. But at this point, it is number 6 on my list. To the bone. All right. Over to
All right
Jim.
then.
All right. Over to
Okay.
Jim.
My number 5, and here comes the hate, is The Raven That Refused to Sing and Other Stories.
Oh,
I
Now,
hate the shock.
here's I, here's my defense of that in being
go
in the
on if
bottom
you
the
have
bottom
one.
half. Yes,
If
if
you
I
have
have
one.
one.
If you have one.
Um, I think I rate this as I do for the same reasons that I rate Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin as kind of lower. It's too much. It's great, but it's just too much to kind of take in one sitting for me. Now Luminol and Drive Home, A plus 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 tunes. I absolutely love those tunes.
Nice save. Go on.
And it's just so much prog that I have to take it in smaller doses. I get what he was going for, and it's executed immaculately. But much like um what was it? Sorry, The Future Bites, I gotta be in the right mood to sit through the whole thing. And I think I've only listened to the whole thing through once. I've cherry picked different tunes here and there. And like I said, Luminol and Drive Home are just absolutely amazing. I will put those in, like, if we were doing a song ranking, those would be in my top 10, certainly maybe my top 5 for Steven Wilson tunes. But just as an album, as a whole thing, it's just too much. I don't, Bill, you were raising the point earlier about one of the things that works for the harmony codex is that there's, a lot of variety. You've got like 4 lengthier songs and smaller songs sort of interspersed in there. Maybe The Raven would be a bit more palatable to me if it had shorter little things in there to kind of mix it up a bit, because it just seems like
Mean to
an
break it
album
up.
full of like 8 to 11 minute songs, and there's 6 of them on there. I, I I'm not trying to dig myself out of a hole because I feel, pretty strongly convicted about why I put this where I did.
Now, you're in a hell of a
Marco,
hole right now. Yeah. Go
yeah,
on. No,
okay.
it's fine.
The
I
performances
can
on
hear
here,
you.
with Marco, Nick Beggs, Guthrie, Adam Holzman, Theo Travis. It's a killer band, and I would have loved to have seen this tour live. Um, but as far as the overall discography and what connects with me, as the man says, don't hate me.
We still love you
So,
with condition.
well,
It's all right. All right. Hey,
okay.
no, no, no. I will go on
Now
record.
who's the pariah?
I'll go on record as saying I recommended this album to the student volunteer that helps me with my workout, Jarrett. And I know if you're watching, Jarrett, I know you are. And I did tell him you need to be in a certain frame of mind you need to, to be stable mentally and emotionally to listen to this album because it is quite dense and is quite deep and melancholy doesn't even begin to scratch the surface when you describe the Raven. But
Yeah,
I agree with I agree with what you're saying to a point. To a point.
to a point.
To a
The
point.
other thing I should call out there, again, just to dig myself out of the hole a little bit, is
Try.
Alan Parsons' engineering on this album is just stellar. I mean, to compare the sound of this to the albums that came before, it's like night and day. It's like it was. If anyone wants sort of an eye-opening experience on what the difference an engineer can make on bringing the sound out, compare Grace for Drowning with Raven, and you'll hear the difference,
Yeah.
my friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I have any left after that ranking, so
You still got me. Still, we don't know yet, but go on. Okay. No, good choice. Good choice. Okay. Bill, down to you.
Hey, I mean, you guys are probably still hating on me for ranking Duke so low in the Genesis album ranking. So
We are.
go.
Go on.
So no, I clearly do not agree with where you put the Raven. It's all personal. It's all subjective. So I mean, we all have our own reasons for doing it. So yeah, I don't
Exactly.
hold anything
Exactly.
against anybody as far as where they rank things. Is I mean, you explained your reasons well, man. Fair enough.
yeah.
So,
And I'm sure when you explain your reasons for where you place it, I'll be like, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. It's the subjectivity of how music hits you. So yeah.
all right,
Okay.
where are we at here? Number five.
Five.
Okay. All right, there it is.
Insurgentes.
Insurgents, whatever anybody wants to call it. I
That
have no
album.
idea either,
Okay.
really. But yeah, it's his debut solo album. It came out prior to the last real Porcupine Tree album, The Incident. I won't go into closure continuation. That's a story for another day.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah. Um,
Holy.
but yeah,
Ladies
there
and
was
gentlemen, the opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of this network. So
there you
go
go,
on.
Jim. I took the target off of you.
Go on. Go on. Holy shit.
um, yeah, but for the album at hand here, this was I bought this way back when it came out, and at the first when I first got it, I took it home and listened to it, and yeah, I didn't really get it. It didn't really vibe with me at that time, but it did grow on me over the years, and I think that's part of the reason I like it so much is because I have had so many years for it to grow on me and get the feel for this album. Familiarity doesn't always breed contempt. Sometimes it breeds love, and yeah, I love this album. It's as I said earlier, it's not about songs really, except for well, the opener, Harmony Korine, is obviously a pretty catchy little pop song, but it's
Mhm.
unusual for the album. Um, um, to me, this album kind of, when it came out, it felt like a retrospective of everything he had done up to that point and a hint of everything he was going to do.
Mhm.
There are bits and pieces of things that connect throughout his career here, different sounds that he's getting into. I really dig Abandoner, this droning electronic sound. It keeps building and building and expect it to climax, and it never does. It just kind of simmers down and fades out. So that was unexpected. So I like those little surprises like that. It would have been so easy and cliched just to have this big boom at the end of it. And he didn't go there. He just
Mhm.
kept the vibe going essentially. Subverted expectations. And much of that album is like that. It's all about slow building, deliberately unhooky tracks. And no twilight within the courts of the sun. Obviously, many people have said it before, and I noticed it as soon as I heard it. The King Crimson vibe, which is fitting because he had just worked with Robert Fripp. the previous year on another, not one of my favorite Porcupine Tree albums. There you go. Shot two fired.
Yeah,
I
good
won't
job.
mention its name because I know a lot of people love it. But
Go.
yeah, he obviously was familiar with Mr. Fripp and his work as he
Yeah,
continued to work on
Yeah.
the King Crimson catalog and its re-releases as well. So Crimson obviously was an influence.
yeah,
Yeah, really, this it really is an album experience. It's not about taking individual songs out. It's another one of those just sit back, close your eyes, and get into the vibe. And if you don't get into the vibe, I get it. I mean, maybe you never will. It took me a long time. But yeah, I like it quite a bit now. I don't play it nearly enough. So I kind of enjoyed being reminded how much I like this with this exercise.
nice.
Okay. All right. Interesting choice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my number 5 is the Harmony Codex, released September 29th, 2023, a lengthy album, 64 minutes and 2 seconds in total. How can I put this? Lush is the only way to describe this album in terms of the uh synth and just ambient textures that happen on this album. Um this album got quite a push in terms of promotion. And if you've seen the videos that were released for economies of scale, it's quite fascinating actually. Um, this is a lot to take in for 64 minutes and 2 seconds. I did, but man, I needed a break at the end of this album. That from the title, no, I was going to say title track, from the lead off track, Inclination, with mix of rhythmic and ambient textures and just to me it's very musically hypnotic. Inclination. um what life brings, fantastic guitar tone, very laid back quality to the track. Again, the single, economies of scale, to me it's uh the background vocals to me are very haunting on this track for some reason. uh it's just it's a fantastic collection of songs. Impossible Tightrope, Rock Bottom, again, as was mentioned before. With the in my notes, I have a dreamy synths, a nice mid tempo, very dramatic vocals, and thick guitar tone. That's what I like about his guitar work when he does lead. Very nice thick texture uh to his guitar tone. Beautiful Scarecrow is another fantastic track. Um, what I feel with this album is with the Future Bites, he went, you know, wholeheartedly into pop. You know what I mean? Techno and pop, and using Elton John as, for a personal shopper. Then he went back into prog territory. And as much as you say, Stephen, that you're not a prog artist, you're a prog artist. I'm sorry. Embrace it, accept it, move on. It is what it is. I'm sorry. He went back into prog territory with the Harmony Codex. And I got to say, with the overview from reports, it's pretty much two 20-minute tracks on the album. So he's going into the Mike Oldfield territory with with this stuff. Okay. So I'm looking forward to that. But with the Harmony Codex, he created an album that's basically a musical soundscape of just lush, textured, and just beautifully put together. And again, the sequencing on the album is, like Bill said, it is spot on, you know, um, because he hits you with the extended pieces of music, but not all at once. Most albums, or a good amount of albums, I tend to find are front loaded with the good, the what they consider to be the good tracks or what they want to promote more, and the bottom end of the album is sort of like you kind of peter out with the tracks, with the track listing in terms of the quality of music. But this album all the way through, fantastic. But it is my number five. Yeah. Um, so and I will sit by that. And if some people stand by it, I will sit by it. So moving on to Jim Crew's number four.
Number four. So I think this completes the trifecta of To the Bone from 2017. So I have that as my number four. Um, it's talked about it a lot here. It to me, it's a great broad swath of pop music that's got some great rock and prog influences, flourishes, or just outright, it's just there in your face. Um, the title track was written with Andy Partridge from XTC. Pariah is like Steve and the Nets version of Don't Give Up. You know, Same Asylum as before is this fantastic up-tempo rocker. It would be my candidate for like the best single from the album. Refuge has this incredibly uh, distorted but affecting harmonica solo from Mark Feltham, which that's like Steven's connection finally to Talk Talk's Color of Spring. Yes, there we go. Um, I know Steven holds the three Talk Talk albums, Color of Spring, Spirit of Eden, and Laughing Stock in very high regard. So it's great that he could sort of make that connection. Uh, Terminating, absolutely great up-tempo pop. Song of I, um, is a really fun, groovy tune. But there's just something. I did have this album higher, but the more I listen to it, the more I spend time with it, there's just kind of a sense of stifling. We talked before about how Steven Wilson's albums are sometimes they can be a lot to get through, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
a musical denseness that contributes to that. There's also kind of a lyrical thematic denseness and a weight that can really pull people down. I mean, if you're one of those guys who just likes to go on a binge and just drink from the fire hose of an artist and get everything all at once, Steven Wilson, you will drown, because again, there's just a weightiness to everything that
Yeah.
that affects the listener. It's not that it's all depressing. There's a lot of very affirming stuff in just the emotional depth that he can get into, and frankly, I prefer his albums that have the more emotional depth. Um, I guess To the Bone, maybe if it had a few less tracks, I might put it a little bit higher because it would not be as weighted. But all in all, To the Bone is just a great album. I played the bejeepers out of that when it came out in 2017. So number four on my list, but that puts it in the upper half. So that's where I differ from my friends here, but that's all right.
Or do you? You said the trifecta, but I haven't actually picked it yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my
Except now I
bad.
have. It's my
There.
number four.
Okay.
This is the only one
Well,
I
let
own
me.
on vinyl, so I wanted to show this beauty off. Usually I went for Blu-rays for whatever reason. I mean, as you guys know, everybody knows that's familiar with this guy, the kind of packaging he has. I mean, this is just inner sleeves with the lyrics and everything, just gorgeous stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, the vinyl, there's the gatefold. I mean, it sounds just wonderful. I'm sure the Blu-ray probably sounds better because I mean that's kind of Steven's thing, uh, and he does it really really well. But the vinyl sounds great, so no questions about sound quality, no matter the format with him. I haven't tried any of his cassettes, and I'm not going to, so I'll just let that lie.
Okay.
Boggles me that they exist, but here we are.
Yeah, I
When
know.
this came out, both in person and online, I encountered many fans who complained because this was a pop album.
Hmm.
And despite Steven's own explanation that, yeah, he was trying to emulate, Kate Bush, Peter Gabriel, Talk Talk, Tears for Fears, all these smart 80s pop artists that he admired so much, This never struck me as a pop album at all in the sense of what its detractors were using the term for. This is not light, easy listening, just catchy tunes here, with perhaps one exception. Um, this is a pretty deep, dark album, and yeah, weighty subject matter indeed. Wow. Uh, I like the whole album overall, but I could in general agree. I would probably take out a couple songs too, just to cut down on the length. Um, Pariah, wow. No matter, it's compared to Don't Give Up, the Peter Gabriel, Kate Bush duet. I think this is better. This is an improved Don't Give Up. And a
Oh,
lot of it
great.
comes down to Nanette's performance.
Mhm.
There's the part, let me see, when she sings the Take Comfort from Me, it will take time, and the music swells with her
Yeah,
just
that
talking about
final
it. I
swell at the crescendo is
Wow.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it a billion times, but I listened to it a few hours ago prepping, and that tears welled up in my eyes. I just felt a surge of emotion throughout my whole body, just chills
That
when
happens,
it
yeah.
hit. And that song is amazing, and Nanette is absolutely outstanding. Um, Refuge. It's another emotional powerhouse. I mean, Stephen wrote it about events in the UK specifically, but it's a very personalized lyric that humanizes refugees when they're very often demonized and dehumanized and criminalized, and it puts a human face.
Yeah.
And it's a more generalized lyric, even though he was inspired by specific events in the UK. It could be applied to many situations around the world to this very day. It's a pretty powerful song about humans and the things we put each other through. I don't know. It's rough stuff lyrically. I think musically though, as much as I like the lyrics, I think the music goes on too long in this song. Oh no, I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm thinking of the wrong ending of the song. I'll come back to that. I had a brain fart. Um, the
Major
music's
brain
just
fart.
fine in
Go
this
on.
song. Scratch that. Uh,
Okay.
okay, after Refuge, Permeating is absolutely a needed ray of light after the darkness,
Yes.
and it works. It's Stephen almost sounds giddily happy here,
Yeah.
which
Have
is
you seen the
bizarre.
video for it?
I think I
I
have, but it's
haven't.
been a while.
I haven't.
It's basically like him at a Diwali festival. Just, there's dancers and singing and colors being thrown around. I mean, yeah, Happy Stephen. It's a nice side every once in a while to see Happy Stephen.
It's good to know that he's not all darkness. And
Yes.
apparently, during the tour, he was telling the
Melancholy.
audience
Yeah.
it's okay to get up and dance. And,
Right.
wow. All right, Song of I, another duet with the female singer, but this time Sophie Hunger. It's not quite as strong as Pariah, but I still like it quite a bit. It's still a very strong song, a whole different vibe. Detonation. That's the song I was thinking with that the music does not. It doesn't justify its length musically.
Mhm.
Lyrically, I think it works really well. It's another topical lyric. It's about a religious extremist who shot up the club in Florida in 2016, the gay nightclub.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's essentially, according to Stephen himself, it's about people who use beliefs that they may not even believe themselves just as a cover for their
I get
bad
it.
behavior.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
So
Jeez.
yeah, it's pretty disturbing lyrically. If you really get into it, it's a very dark song. Obviously, subject matter alone will tell you that. But yeah, I just wish that the music that supported it was a little stronger and not quite so long winded.
Mhm.
So that's one of my minor criticisms of the album. I think I would definitely chop off a bit of the end of Detonation. But
Mm.
overall, though, I really quite enjoy this album to this day. Um, yeah, well enough it's at number four. So yeah, number four is To the Bone.
Good. Good. Yep. Yeah, the subject matter on the album is quite stark. It is quite ooh heavy
Yep.
overall, yeah. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, we must continue. My number four is The Future Bites. Um, Released January 29th, 2023, a shorter album clocking in at just under 42 minutes, 41 minutes and 59 seconds, 9 tracks in total. This to me is where Steven Wilson goes full out techno pop. I mean, but with weighty subject matter buried in the lyrics here. Um,
Mhm.
you know, the intro of Unself and then Self comes in. Fantastic. King Ghost, 12 Things I Forgot, Eminent Sleaze, we won't go there. Okay. Um, Man of the People, I'm not even going to touch that. That is too simple right now to go for it. Um, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not even going to go there. I really am not.
Yep, let's just skip that.
Yeah, please. Track number seven, Personal Shopper, featuring Elton John on incidental vocals. 9 minutes and 49 seconds. My favorite track on the album. This is an ass shaker. I've said it. It's an ass shaker of a track. I'm sorry. I'd be remiss if I didn't call it an ass shaker of a track. But if you see the video for it, it is quite disturbing. Okay. And for those of you, the few of you who haven't seen it, it's about this shopper who goes to the mall, goes to stores, store to store to go buy things. And he literally has to give pieces of himself up in order to get what he wants. So the
Well, now,
moral of the song is, what will you sacrifice? How much of yourself will you sacrifice to get what you want? Right? People should really think about that, but we won't go there. I just think it's the centerpiece of the album for me. Um, Followers, another good song. Count of Unease. I mean, yeah, as a album closer. This album, CD, whatever you want to call it, has been released in many formats, many different promotions, remixes, remixes of the remixes, remixes of the remixes of the remixes. I mean, it never
choose
stopped.
your own remix.
Exactly. In terms of the
He's
album
released the
promotion,
stems for people to mix their own
exact,
versions. Yeah.
exactly. It never ended with this album in terms of the promotion cycle. Uh, But to me, just give me the basic album. Come on, just give me what you got. Just give me what you originally intended to do. Uh, I like it, and it may go up further on my list, it may go down further on my list, depending on the mood I'm in. But at this point, it is for me number four. So moving on.
While we're talking about different editions
Go on.
of
Yeah.
this album, it's worth mentioning that as a fundraiser for a music um, education clinic in the UK, Stephen produced a limited edition of the Future Bites, and it was a limited edition of one. It contained the CD, the Blu-ray, the vinyl, if memory is serving right. It included a basically a 7-inch version of a song that was just unreleased that he just had single pressed and put in there. It had like awards that he had received for the album, like in terms of sound design and mixing and things like that. And there were a couple other little tchotchkes in there. And yes, it was a limited edition of one, and it did sell. I think the asking price was like $10,000 for the fundraiser, and someone
Yeah.
paid it.
Someone paid it, eh? Well,
Yep.
for those who have the money for it, more power to you.
This was a slight tangent. There's a music board out there for audiophile freaks and music junkies. I'm more of the music junkie side of things. That's run by Steve Hoffman. And when the news came out, there was a whole thread that was running on the Future Bites, and it was one of the forum members who ended up bidding on and winning the bid for this piece. And so he shared stories of, I think he actually had a phone call with Steven,
Mm.
as sort of a, thanks, appreciate it, sort of thing. And Steven's thing related to the that 7-inch that I mentioned that was unreleased. Steven's guidance to the guy was like, you can do whatever you want with that. If you want to release it, put it out there. I'm totally fine with it. I'm not going to give you any flack about that. It's yours to do with what you will.
Okay.
So interesting. It was interesting the amount of Steven Wilson fans who were like congregating around this guy just to say, share about the experience. Tell us more. What
Yeah.
possessed you to do this? Da, 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 da. So it was interesting conversation.
And just another quick question though, with the release and the promotion of the Future Bites and all the remixes in different formats, it begs the question, how much is enough?
Oh, sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like it just, oh, there's another version. Oh, there's an extra track that's like another minute and 10 seconds that you can, that you can hear. If you buy this additional version of the album, it's like, my God. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yep.
But all right. Okay, Bill, down to you.
I
Uh,
think it's
I think
Jim's
it's
turn.
I think it's me.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
we went on
Right.
tangents again.
Okay. It's the tangents. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. One sip of coffee and I'm fucked up. So there we go. Over to Jim.
My number three is the album from 2023, the Harmony Codex.
Okay.
To me, this is one of the finest amalgams of prog, jazz, and rock that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
From, Bill, you touched on a lot of it with the sequencing of the album, the sound design, the production. It's just a phenomenal it's just an absolutely phenomenal album. To me, the music breathes. I mean, there's a lot of space for all the, beautiful music and soundscapes and arrangements that are going on. And the album is free of the thematic stifling that I talked about before, that kind of affects to the bone for me. Um, yeah, Harmony Codex is fantastic. It took me a while to get my arms around it, but once I was able to kind of sit down and have some uninterrupted listening, it was a completely immersive experience. Um, and that's number three of eight. Fantastic record, highly recommended, highly, highly.
Okay. Yeah, like I said before, with my ranking of it, after the Future Bites, Steven Wilson just seemed to jump back into the prog arena, right? And
Hmm.
with both feet, and
Do you think it's because he felt chastised by the fan base or just because he was following his whims?
I think he was just following whatever the hell he wanted to do. This Steven Wilson as a musician is someone that doesn't go by trends. He does whatever the hell he wants. And if he wanted to do, hell, he could have done after the Harmony Codex or after the Future Bites, or he could have done whatever musical style. He could have done a full symphonic album after the Future
An album of
Bites.
duets with Taylor Swift.
Yes, he is a Swiftie.
You're forgiven for that, Stephen. All right.
But
But
just an interesting comment. Remember what happened in between the Future Bites and the Harmony Codex was closer continuation. He resurrected
that's
Porcupine
right.
Tree for that one album and the tour.
That's
Now,
right.
I don't know how much of that was just purely a cash grab. Um, but certainly I think there's your stepping stone to get to Harmony Codex is that Future Bites, closure continuation, and then to
But
there.
I, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. But I'm just saying that I think that in his mind, he is probably thinking after the Future Bites, I'm at a point in my career where I could basically do whatever the hell I want musically. I could do an album of total, go the John Williams route and do a whole symphony, you know, and it's what I want to do, and people there will be people that will accept what he does. So I mean, um,
Yeah.
I did. In just in closing, I do think that there could be maybe a slight feeling on Stephen Wilson's part that maybe with the Future Bites, he maybe went too far into pop, and he wanted to sort of go back on, like sort of redirect the ship and go in back into prog. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all conjecture. I mean, you don't know, right? So, but that's my uninformed opinion, you know. So, moving on.
All right. Number three. Speaking of how many formats do you need? Apparently two in this case.
Oh,
Race for Drowning. This was at the point that I was still undecided. I was getting my feet in to the Blu-ray format and teased the main reason why. But I still felt like I had to have the CD too to play in the car and that sort of thing. So hence, yeah. But really, the Blu-ray is the way to go. The CD is fine, sounds good, but no, anytime, even any Steven Wilson album that I've ever been able to compare the Blu-ray to anything else, it's got to be the Blu-ray. And in addition to the music itself, the sound quality, the surround sound mixes, you also have videos and such, which kind of intensify the experience. And this one has some pretty creepy ones. Has pretty creepy songs as well. Um, well, Index, case in point, the video
Oh,
and the, oh my, yeah, it's
hmm
a little bit of a serial killer vibe there.
only a little bit?
Only a little, not unusual territory for Street Stephen. It's kind of one of
That's
his
true.
themes. Um,
mm
well, this was a lot to take in when it came out. Um,
Double album.
yeah, and there's a lot of music on it, but on the plus
Oh,
side, they're not over long double albums. Each disc on the on the CD version, it's two discs. The Blu-ray, obviously, it's all runs consecutively, but it's essentially like two albums in one as far as the length of the individual discs, like old school
Yeah.
30-minute ish type albums. So I think that works well if you only want to listen to one
hmm
at a time and then maybe come back and try to absorb the other one. That's a
Mhm.
trick that a lot of modern artists have tried, and I think it kind of works well rather
Yeah.
than cramming everything onto one disc and everybody being overwhelmed. Um, I really dig the way this starts out with something just different, just that vocal from the title track, short and sweet, and then it goes into Sectarian, this hard rock instrumental.
Oh,
Wow,
Yeah.
they talk about radical change there from one track to another, and it works well into the beautiful deformed to form a star. That's just otherworldly. Just it's a lovely song. Really, this album is kind of all over the place in the way that his albums often are. Um, Raider 2 might be a bit much for many people. It's quite extended. Kind of
Yeah.
curious if the new album you were referring to, Armando, with the song links there is going to be anything like this, or definitely curious
I
to hear
Yeah,
that.
no, but yeah, no, just to kind of quickly, sorry about, there's been no real word on this new album coming out, the overview, just that it's two 20-minute plus tracks per one per basically and track per side on vinyl. And yeah, he's back in the prog. As he never really left, but
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Um, One of the things that stands out to me in hindsight about this album, there were hints with guest players on Insurgentes, but here I think is where I really got to feel like he was trying to move beyond the limited band that he had with Porcupine Tree. Not saying those guys are terrible musicians or anything, obviously, but here he was able to bring in a lot of all-star players,
yeah.
and that kind of he ramped that up a bit as he would go along. But this is really the first signs like, hey, I don't have to be limited. I don't have to use the Porcupine Tree members or whoever else he was collaborating with. He could
Yeah.
bring anybody he wanted,
Yeah.
and that was kind of seemed like a revelation for him. Like, I don't even have to be able to play this stuff myself. So that was an important thing about this album that primed him for what would come next. And I'll
Mhm.
leave that there for now. So, Grace for Drowning, yeah, I still love it a lot. It's a lot to absorb, but I have no problem taking the time to do so. Number three.
Yeah. My number three, ladies and gentlemen on the panel, Grace for Drowning. Um, Released 2011, 83 minutes and 1 second. Exactly. Two CDs. God. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot. It's musically, I had to listen to this album in sections. I really did. I needed to take a break, because I felt that I was, how can I put this? Drained after listening to disc one and had to go back and listen to disc two. What else is there to say? It's the first disc, Deform a Star. You know, as Bill was saying, the title track, the nice piano chords and the vocal phrasings are just fantastic. Then it goes into Sectarian, the instrumental, heavy, so Get Out. The title for the title track for the first disc. Um, what I like about what he does is he does use a lot of what I call light and shade. I've used this term before. Light for me is the more somber, quiet, tranquil passages, and the shade is more the heavy guitar, rock oriented stuff. There's a lot of use of that on this album, um, but it works. It works overall. I mean, Postcard is another, fantastic track with the nice piano chords, beautiful melody. He uses a lot of Mellotron.
Yes.
Mellotron galore. He kind of picked up where, yes, dripping with, thank you, Tim, dripping with Mellotron. He kind of picked up where Genesis left off with it, and then there were three. Because after and then there were three, Genesis didn't use Mellotron anymore on their albums. But it is just brilliant the way he does it. Oh my God, this album overall, it's a lot to take in. And the the massive, Raider 2. This is the track that drained me physically. I had to take a nap. I had to take a nap after listening to Raider 2 and, clocking in at 23 minutes and 21 seconds. This is his Supper's Ready. Okay?
But it's an instrumental, as I recall.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot going on here. Um, Again, a lot of use of light and shade, like heavy sections, tranquil sections, sections of I don't know what the hell is going on in terms in terms of the soundscapes he's using. It's a lot to take in sonically. It's not, how can I put this? I'm going to use Black Midi as an example. Black Midi for me was a sonic brain aneurysm. This is not. This is more of a mild arrhythmia, in terms of the heart, and because it takes you on a journey that you don't know where you're ending up, but it's good. It's good. I do feel that it's ambitious to do a double album of this scope, of this nature. This is also the album where everything's thrown in, everything in the kitchen sink, okay, musically. And does it always work? I'll leave it up to the listener for that answer. For me, it does work, but it is taxing in terms of emotionally draining in terms of listening to it as a whole. I would recommend guys watching, and I know you are watching, if you want to listen to this album, listen to it disc at a time. Don't listen to it all in 83 minutes and 1 second because you will be drained emotionally. You will be. There's no way around that. Okay. Uh, but having said all that, it is a good album. It's an ambitious album. There's a lot going on here. He does use, again, I like the fact that he uses, instrumentation like flute, and he does it go with the one track, Raider 2. He does go into what I sort of feel is kind of like a jazz vibe on some sections. He does envelop a lot of the musical genres that we've been talking about, prog especially. But I like the fact that he's willing to experiment and go off on different tangents and avenues. And speaking of tangents, this is one. But it is a good album overall. Take it a piece at a time, a disc at a time. But it is my number three. So there you go. Race for Drowning.
All right.
Over to Jim.
This is getting redundant. My number two is Grace for Drowning. Um, you know, I guess the things that I'll add is that my understanding is that this album was written um, around the time that Stephen lost his father. And so kind of the sense of melancholy and wanting, um, being emotionally drained comes from dealing with that. Um, you know, talked about some of the tracks, Sectarian is just completely savage. But yet it follows, immediately by Deform to Form a Star, which is just one of his most beautiful pieces ever. Holzman's piano work on that is just beautifully sensitive. Um, and that reminds me that there's kind of like much like Joni's Hygieia, there's like a jazz undercurrent that goes through this whole thing.
Hmm.
It doesn't, like come and beat you over the head, but
Very
there's
subtle.
just that feeling. Maybe it's about the chords and the progressions in it, but and I think Deform is a prime example of that. Um, Two other tracks of special mention: Remainder the Black Dog. you know, Check me on this, guys, but is this not the wildest Steve Hackett guitar solo you've ever heard? I mean, has Steve Hackett done anything more out than this one? Because it's just jaw-dropping phenomenal.
It's out there, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and the concluding track, like Dust I've Cleared from My Eye, is just another one that's amazingly touching, and it's a welcome tonic after the heaviness of Raider 2. Um, yeah, I guess the thing that elevates this album for me to put it as high as I did is just this whole emotional depth that's there, this feeling of just like struggling and loss, striving through this just ennui that he has of just, not really being sure what to do or where to go or even just wanting to go. Um, Postcard touches on that, like Dust touches on that. Um, this was my introduction to Steven Wilson. Up to this point, I had heard about him and heard about Porcupine Tree, and when I saw that Grace for Drowning was released in my local record store in 2011, it was there, a double album for like 9.99 on CD. So I just said, "Thank you very much. I'll invest $10 in a double album," and yeah, became pretty hooked.
This was your introduction?
This was my introduction,
Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay. Well,
and it really just, the just going from you touched on it, Bill, just the first, the title track, and then going into Sectarian. It's just to hear something with that sort of scope within two songs
yeah.
really sold me that, this guy delivers the goods compositionally, arranging, performance. It demonstrated like an ear towards music that I could just really sort of grab onto. Um, and yeah, it's a lot to listen to in one sitting. The two CDs are almost like two different albums. They share some, common thematic elements, but um, yes, our advice as music professionals is to tread lightly and take it
Yes.
a disc at a time.
Hmm.
Race for Drowning, my number two.
It's a lot to take in. I mean, sonically, it's just Raider 2 for me. It was just like, what am I listening to? Like, what the hell is going on? I mean, it's
Yeah.
good, but there's a lot going on. So, yeah.
Yeah.
No, all right. Okay. Bill, number two.
All right, let me unmute
Which will it
myself.
be?
The grandchildren have arrived as I heard dogs barking in the other room. So
Okay.
that's why I muted so we didn't get Jim drowned out potentially.
No, that's fine.
um, my number two, yeah, hand
Yeah.
cannot erase. Yeah, you see, I only have the Blu-ray of this. I gave up the Ghost on the CDs at this point. I realized I don't need it. I did get a digital copy and I burned a CD for the car though, so I had the best of all worlds. I didn't need the actual.
There
Uh,
you go.
but yeah, the Blu-ray is the way to go. And I mentioned when we did our perfect album shows, um, when this came up, spoiler alert, as Jim's final choice in the series, um, I had mentioned a website that goes along with this. And I just wanted to point out it really helps with the appreciation of the story because this is the concept album. This is the journal of the main character over a
Mm,
number of years from essentially 2008 to 2015 in her life. And it elucidates everything that's going on here very well. If you're confused about the story at all, this helps clear it up.
mhm.
Um, the website is just for people who want to look it up. It's simply handcannoterase.com.
Okay,
And
so it's still up.
yeah, it's still up. I have it on right here. There's the opening. But if
Okay.
you're going to read the character's journal, it starts at the most recent entry. You have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to get to the oldest entry and work your way back up to do it chronologically. But it is well worth it if you like this album at all.
Okay. So, okay.
Add this
Makes
to your
sense.
part of the experience. Um, but as to the album itself, wow, talk about an emotional powerhouse, a ride. This album is horrifically sad. It is just heart crushing. It was based on, of course, the woman who was found uh, dead in her place in England and had
Joyce
been
Carol
for what,
Vincent.
2 years. And she was well. I mean, people knew her. She had a job. She had family members, but it took all that time before anyone missed her. Uh, and he kind of used that story as a starting point for this, and he takes it in other places. I'm not going to spoil too much about the story because it's pretty intense and quite something. But yeah, it's very emotional. This character's alienation from everything and everyone, just about from the human race. It's man, there's little parts of me sometimes that can feel that, and that's what makes it even more effective. I think
Mhm.
maybe I don't know, maybe we all have a bit of that from time to time where we just wonder why are we even here? Why do we even fit in with these people? Do we
That was
belong
me an hour ago, but go on.
here? There you go. So yeah, this is a pretty. It's a deep album. It goes into you could say fantasy sci-fi territory to a degree,
Yeah.
but uh, that doesn't really matter what genre it might be classified under. It's a very human and very thoughtful, deep story, and the
Mhm.
music supports it. Again, Nanette is here this time. She's on routine, and as usual, she has a wonderful, very emotionally powerful vocal. Uh,
Yeah. God.
Hand Cannot Erase, the title track, is another one of those perfect pop songs that he kind of throws in amidst all the darkness. It's this, and yet it's not incongruous. Somehow it fits
Mhm.
in the overall
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah.
Um, Probably the reason that this is number two and not number one for me is because I think it goes on a little too long. I think
Mm.
Ancestral goes on too long in particular. I feel like he was almost throwing a bone to the prog fans there after, everybody that got sucked in with Raven. It almost feels like just a token gesture to have that long instrumental workout. And I think it kind of takes away from the story a bit. I think the story is key to this album.
Hmm.
Wonderful music, but yeah, without the story though, it's a whole different animal, and I would rank it much lower. They should work hand in hand, and they almost do perfectly. Very close for me, but I would just slightly tweak it and shrink it a bit. So very minor criticism, but it's still a masterful album. Very, very effective and emotionally resonant. So yeah, number two is easily panned, cannot erase.
So I got a question for you, Bill, talking about Ancestral, which kind of seems like a track that's in two parts. You've got the vocal section and then the extended, you know, instrumental coda, if you will. Um, do you feel that it would have worked better if Steven had kind of split it apart, similar to like Home Invasion and Regret Number Nine? They're two different tracks, but yet they're connected.
Maybe
Do you feel it would have been more successful if he kind of split Ancestral in half?
maybe so. That might be. I might have to try that myself just to see. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's an interesting thought. I don't, but still, even just too much instrumental content in general with this album, I think,
Hmm.
uh, might be detrimental to it. So I don't know if that would work or not. Uh, I need the
Okay.
narrative to continue for this album, I think.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I get it.
But
Uh,
again, very minor
yeah,
complaint.
yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we must continue. My number two. Bill, could you hold that up again for me, please? Hand cannot erase. Um, my God. Um, oof. The concept of this album, the inspiration for this album was the disappearance of one Carol Joyce Vincent, who, and I hope I have the first two names correct. I'm sorry if I don't. My apologies. A woman, for all intents and purposes, disappeared. She passed away in her apartment, and nobody knew. Nobody questioned. Nobody inquired as to where she was for, I think it was 3 years. And by all accounts, she was well liked, well loved. She was a member of her community. She had a good job. She was very popular, but she just disappeared and nobody went to look for her, family included. That is sad. And it was very emotional for me to listen to this album. Musically, it is stellar. Clocking in at 65 minutes and 44 seconds, very long album. Um, he just went for it on this album. I do believe musically, and uh, it starts off with the first regret, track instrumental piece at 2 minutes and a second. Then it goes into 3 years older. A lot of use of Mellotron and on this album, dripping with Mellotron on this album. Um, the the title track is another fantastic piece for me, with the use of in my notes I have here, nice mix of drum loops and guitar, very melodic, great thick guitar tone. He's always got a really good guitar tone, Steven Wilson, when he does step out and does a solo. Track number four, Perfect Life. I mean, this is
Yeah.
hard. This is hard for me um to talk about it, but it is what it is. Yeah, Perfect Life for me is a standout on this album, and I'm tearing up as I'm talking about it. In my notes, I have your effective melodic chorus, dreamy synths, rhythmic drum pattern, song builds and instrumentation on the vocals on the chorus on the end of the track. It's just beautiful. Um, Home Invasion, following following that, it's just brutal. I'm sorry, to me, it's very epic in its presentation and production. It's a very brutal track. But overall, the album itself is just it's disturbing in its content. Musically, it is simply put together, simply sublime, the way it's put together. I will disagree with Bill in that I do not believe there are too many instrumentals on this album. I think that you need the instrumentals to break up what's going on in terms of the lyrics, in terms of the song sequencing on this album. I think that the instrumentals kind of break it up a little bit for me. Uh, it's fantastic. It is fantastic. Um, but it is my number two. And number one, coming up, you'll see what it is. I'm sorry that I'm sorry I got emotional, guys, but it was really difficult to listen to this album. Uh,
It's an emotional record.
it is, it
It's
is.
pretty devastating.
And with my family history, it didn't help. It didn't help.
Yeah.
But I think for anyone out there, um, it is an important album to listen to. Um, but we must carry on. Going over to Jim for your number one.
My number one, again, I'd like to call into service my friend Mr. Bill Schuster. Do you mind? There you go. That's my number one. Hand cannot erase. As Bill alluded to, it was my final pick for 31 perfect albums as well. Um, yeah, we're all kind of like, how do you talk about this? Um, for me, the reason that it's my number one is that it's got the most emotional heft to it, which is kind of like a no. It's like, duh, of course it's got emotional heft given the subject matter to it. I know that there are people who have talked about this as sort of the sort of modern version of The Wall, about how people deal with alienation and how it affects them. Certainly, this is a lot less cartoonish than The Wall, and I'm not knocking The Wall. It's a great album, but this one just has a more straightforward emotional depth without all of the um, you know, symbolism that, Roger kind of puts together to express what he did in The Wall. This is just a very straightforward telling of a very, horrific um, event and arc of a character's life. Um, a few things to call out from, I'll just say from a quality standpoint. Um, Armando, you were talking about Home Invasion. There are parts of Home Invasion that are, it kind of almost starts out like a speed metal, just with a,
Yeah, yeah,
all that
very
stuff coming in.
staccato. Yeah,
And then, but then there's parts of it where like the acoustic guitar starts chiming in, and it sounds like Steven's just all of a sudden gone into Alan Parsons Project territory,
no, yeah,
all within the same track. I mean, Home Invasion in itself feels like it's got like three distinct parts to it, and they loop through. The segue into Regret Number Nine is just absolutely astounding. Adam Holzman's keyboards are just the keyboard solo is outstanding. And like I said in our video for when we talked about the Hand Cannot Erase album, Guthrie Govan's solo on Regret Number Nine is like a clinic in just absolute masterful guitar playing,
yeah,
expressiveness, economy, deft. I mean, it just hits everything. One of the reasons I don't feel like Ancestral goes on too long is that it kind of, where it's placed on the album, it kind of feels like um, the climax, if you will, especially the way the instrumental portion just keeps picking up in tempo and just becomes more and more brutal. It just feels like that is the where the story kind of climaxes. It's a horrible climax. It's very, very tragic, but then what follows with um happy returns and ascendant here on just seem like this tragic coda. I was going to call it beautiful because the music is beautiful, but it's, beautiful in the way that, a funeral dirge can be beautiful. It's very somber, it's very weighty, it's very affecting, low key, but man, this whole album is it's a concept album. To me, it's the finest concept album that there is because the story is so clear, it's so intact, and it takes you from a very clear beginning through to a conclusion. Like the rest of Steven Wilson's albums, it's not a comfortable listen. It's not an easy listen. It is very, very affecting.
Not at all.
Um, but again, highly, highly recommended. Um, if you need to get a comfort animal after this album, would totally understand the need to do that.
I grab my pups and give them a hug when I listen to this. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
And just in case people haven't heard it, we talk about things like it's weighty, it's difficult, it's tough. There's these speed metal staccato bursts in there. It's not like this is difficult music to listen to. It's not like the music is abrasive and hard to connect to. It is very warm and enveloping and easy to sort of grab onto.
Yeah,
It's also got a lot of variety. So there's a lot in this album to like. Um, the thing that just flashed in my head is like Picasso's Guernica. This massive painting that he did to talk about what was going on in the Spanish Civil War. It's it's very dark subject matter, but the execution of how he did it is just stunning.
yeah. What you're basically saying is these albums can be a lot like heavy in terms of lyrical content and instrumentation and arrangements, but they're also accessible at the same time. Like
Yep,
there
yep,
there's always a way in to get in to start listening to these albums. They're very accessible,
yeah,
right? So yeah,
absolutely.
no, I see what you're saying. No, and I agree with you 1000%. I really do. All right, down to
All
Bill.
right. Before I uh, get my number one, I just want to add one more comment question uh, about Hand Cannot Erase.
Yeah.
Um, it is a very sad, tragic album, but I would posit that perhaps in the end, without giving spoilers away for folks in the audience that haven't heard it, I think maybe the protagonist got what she really wanted all along in the end. So maybe it's a happy ending.
Maybe.
I don't know how to comment on that. I really don't.
Something to think about. Everyone has their own
Uh, yeah.
gold at the end of their rainbow.
Again, I'm just going, and I understand what you're saying. I'm just going by by my past experience. Um, so that's yeah, that's something to think about though.
Yeah, this record, if you have had a heavy, emotional, devastating loss of a family member, this album can be really, really, really hard to take on.
Yes. Let me. Yeah. I'll just say. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching the channel for X amount of time or any amount of time, you've known that I lost my sister, who was murdered in on Christmas Day of 2002. So listening to this album for me brought back a lot of memories. and which is why it was difficult to listen to at times. It's a good album, but I just wanted to sort of give a bit of more background as to my past experience. But we have to carry on, ladies and gentlemen. Bill, you're number one.
All right. All right. I think we've had enough. Yeah, hand cannot erase emotional devastation to go around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let's move on to equally dark subject matter, but just
Yeah, how about a lighter, poppier album, Bill?
spread across.
What do you got for it?
Oh my God, it's ABBA. Okay.
Obviously, it's the Raven that refused to sing and other stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This, for those who watched or didn't watch our series, this was one of my final picks for my perfect albums. Um, and yeah, it still, after all these years, it still resonates with me. Um, it has six separate songs. I get what Jim's going for uh, with the song length and the structure of the album, but it works for me because somehow on this album, since it's not a cohesive story throughout, it's six different ghost stories,
Mhm.
Individual narratives. I think the long instrumental sections work for me here because I'm not looking to go from one part of the story to the other. Um, I'm taking each song and each story individually, and somehow that makes it different for me. So here, I want him to have these long instrumental sections because at the time this came out, I think this was the best rock band in the world.
Oh, the band is
Oh
outstanding.
yeah, like Marco Miniman. My God, on drums, my God, like, come on.
Yeah. And Guthrie Govan in particular. I mean, some of
Yeah.
these other guys, they've been with Steven here and there and have contributed further, but Guthrie kind of had a limited run with Steven, and this was really the high point, I think, the point where this was a band. He didn't go out and get a bunch of guys, he had a band.
Yeah.
And I think it helps this album thematically. I mean, it's consistent throughout. You can tell
Mhm.
that these guys are playing together, and yeah, Guthrie is just ridiculous on here. The solo in Drive Home is obviously a favorite among fans. That is just whew, David Gilmour, eat your heart out. Here comes the new guy.
Yeah.
um, wow, and again, the Blu-ray is the way to go. The CD is fine, but yeah, the Blu-ray with or without the videos, that surround sound experience just enhances everything. Because that's what Steven does. He's a master of sonics. He knows what he's doing here. But really, these even though they're ghost stories, you're getting into the fantasy territory again. I think these songs are all very emotionally resonant as well, because
Yeah.
even though it's
Mhm.
fantasy situations, it's very real human emotions involved here. Um, Jim, you mentioned Luminol and Drive Home as great songs, and yeah, I love those. I loved every song on this album for different reasons. So I'm not going to argue at all with that. But look at stuff like The Watchmaker. That whew, talk about another tragic song. I mean, whew, yeah, I can't even get the words out.
I'll
So
take over.
obviously, this album affects me quite a bit too.
It does, yeah.
It's a tragic, not so love story about a man who.
Do you want me to say it? Because I know what the story is.
God, wow! I just, yeah, I didn't expect the Watchmaker in particular to hit me like this, but wow, yeah, it's a man who, yeah, go ahead.
Basically, the story of the watchmaker, ladies and gentlemen, is about a couple who have been married for a long time, but then the husband realizes that they've been married out of convenience, and he doesn't love her, but basically he thinks, oh, she'll do for now.
Yeah,
And then he ends up killing the wife and burying her under the store of his watch repair place store. But the revenge part comes in when her ghost returns and tells him, I'm with you forever. You didn't get rid of me. You'll never get rid of me. So, yeah, it's hard to talk about. Um, but so I'm trying not to tear up right now myself. It is very difficult, but that is the gist of the song. So
I never really loved you, but I'll miss you anyway.
yeah, yeah, but you'll do. Like, oh,
Yeah,
it's like,
man.
oh, gee, F
Yeah.
you very much, kind of a thing. And I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, um,
Yeah. So again, even though it's a ghost story and fantasy, this is to go back to very real human emotions here. The title track. Musically, it's another one of those simple, slow building songs that he does so well. Um, Lyrically, it's about an old man.
um,
Ah, I'm not even going to put this one in your card, Armando. That's just listen to the album, folks. My God, I can't even talk about some of these things. They're
okay,
just yeah,
I got it. I got it. I got it.
yeah.
Yep.
I
I got it.
yeah. Obviously, I'm getting too emotional about all the lyrical subject matter and about all these characters and their very real human emotions.
Yeah.
So this is clearly not just about the powerhouse band for me. This is very emotionally resonant on
Yeah,
many levels. So
yeah,
if it was just the band and just the wonderful music, it wouldn't be my number one. But it's the combination. All the parts are here. All the pieces fell into place perfectly on this for me. And yeah, still
Yeah.
to this day, I'll put it on listen from front to back. Won't want to skip a second. So yeah, the Raven that refused to sing. It's my favorite album of 2013. Probably one of my top three albums of this 21st century so far.
yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to continue. My number one, hold it up. The rhythm that refused to sing. Thanks, Bill. I'm going to go into the story behind the tracks because Bill pretty much covered musically what's on here. You know, fantastic album, released February 26, 2013. Um, 6 tracks in total, co-produced and engineered by Alan Parsons of Alan Parsons Project. If you've been living in a cave, you know who he is in terms of his production work. Um, to me, The Raven That Refused to Sing and Other Stories is very much a fall winter album. Uh, Very stark, very very dark themes. Six ghost stories. The lead off track, Luminol, which for me tells a story from what Stephen Wilson says. There was this individual, this busker that he would see every day, and rain or shine, snow, whatever, he would be out there doing the best he can, singing his songs, trying to make money. And the idea of this individual going missing and like just disappearing, and nobody would ever take notice of him. Right? Very deep and dark imagery and storytelling going on here. Drive Home, track two, talks about this gentleman who he's on the drive home with his wife, sitting in the car with him. And the story is she died in a tragic accident, and he is having trouble dealing with the fact that she's gone. And her ghost is with him in the car. And at one point, she says, "Okay, we're coming up to the point where the accident happened. You need to understand I'm gone and I'm not coming back." It's hard. It is really hard. The Holy Drinker talking about this evangelical individual who, don't do as I say, do as I say, don't do as I do. Okay. Genesis covered this kind of this topic in Jesus Who Knows Me in 1991. But the Holy Drinker talks about this individual who gets into a drinking contest with the devil, and he loses. Moral of the story is you can't beat the devil. Okay. The Pin Drop, track number 4, talks about it talks about this woman who basically the narrative is coming from her point of view as she's drowning in a lake. And she says that she didn't know that there was a problem in the marriage until he killed her. That was the pin drop. She never knew it was coming. And it is quite deep. The Watchmaker, we've talked about what it's about. Fantastic track, clocking in at 11 minutes and 42 seconds. There's a lot of lengthy tracks on this album. They're all lengthy, but it is a fantastic track. The title track, track number 6, the Raven That Refused to Sing, talks about this elderly man who is having memories of his sister. They were very close, and she used to sing to him. And she passed away tragically when they were young. And this raven comes to his window, and he is convinced that this raven is the reincarnation of his sister, because the raven's there almost every day, practically is there every day. And he's trying to get this raven to sing this song to hum this song that his sister used to sing to him as a child. Okay. You have to listen to this album in a certain frame of mind. As fantastic and as rich and lush and beautiful as it is, you have to listen to this album in a certain frame of mind. You have to be confident within yourself, strong emotionally, to be able to get through this album. Or if you want a good cry, have at it. Go for it. Sit back with the lights off, with the fire low, warming yourself near the fire, or with a drink, a tea, coffee, hot chocolate. This is definitely a winter or late autumn album. This is not an album that you can listen to when you want to be in a good mood or get yourself hyped up again. This is not the album for that.
Right.
And but having said all that, you cannot discount or downplay the music on this album. The arrangements are fantastic. The drumming from Marco Miniman, is sublime. The overall musicianship on this album and the interplay between the musicians is stellar. Check out this album. There's a reason why it was always going to be my number one. It was never going to be any other place on the list, and the reasons I just expressed are why. So that is my number one. And just in closing, before I stop ranting and raving, too late, but don't take our word for it. You can stream all these albums on YouTube, listen to them, and make up your own mind. So any more? Did I miss anything, guys, with the Raven?
I think I'm going to need to go listen to Abba Gold to recover from this ranking here. Get some sunshine in.
Exactly.
Yeah, ABBA's a good antidote for Steven Wilson in terms of the musical content.
SOS.
Yes.
And what's funny, of course, is that Steven is one of the biggest ABBA fans there is.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Mr. Darkness himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So there you have it, guys. Ranking the albums of Steven Wilson. Again, we are not telling you that this is a definitive list. Okay, we are not experts. We're just giving you our opinion. So please put down there in the comments below your ranking of the albums of Steven Wilson. You know, teach us something we don't know. Maybe we put these albums in an order that we think are the way they should be. Maybe we missed something. If there's something we missed in terms of these albums, let us know. Right? There's no harm in that. So again, I want to thank Jim and Bill for joining me on this extended episode.
Are
um,
there any other kinds of episodes, Armando?
with the three of us, including Ken. No. We try, but you know what? Damn it, we can't do it. It isn't possible. So again, please check out these albums. They're all fantastic. You know, everyone is going to have a different opinion. And again, we did not, check in with one another for our lists. So the fact that they're, you know, pretty much the same all the way through is a complete accident. Okay. So, and again,
There's a few outliers in there
yeah, one or
amongst
two.
us, which, you know,
One or two. And I still stand by my statement. 4.5 is an album, not an EP. Anyways, in closing, please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that we've got coming up. We've got more shows percolating, as I said yesterday. One of them that we're working on is one I came up with called 3-2-1 Triple Play, where we're going to pick a band and pick a run of 3 albums that they've released that are, if not perfect, at least great. Okay, okay. So I came up with this idea yesterday in the shower of all places. And Jim's going to join me, and Bill is going to join me on this series of episodes, 7 episodes to be done, and that's coming up very soon. So again, please, again, look after yourselves and one another. For Jim and Bill, I'm Armando signing off. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.